Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Spirit and Matters, your daily Bhakti Center podcast. I'm Dayal, along here with Kishore Chandra, and our dear Achyuta Gopi is out one more day today. She's just getting over a bad case of the allergies. So she's just kind of staying off camera and staying at home. I mean, we're always at home, but she's not joining us today, and hopefully she'll be back later this week. So just Kishore and I holding it down. And so glad that all of you guys are here. Good morning, Lane. Good morning, Pasha. Good morning, our live studio virtual audience. And just good morning for all those listening and from all over the world. I just love being here with you guys. How are you doing, Kishore?
I'm doing really well. I
Good.
let myself sleep last night, which was really good. Um,
Good.
and I'm gonna venture outside of my apartment today. It's been way too many days working from home just
Ooh.
like this. Um,
Yeah.
but I was really interested in this topic of Sangha that we talked about yesterday, of community,
Yeah.
and how we are able to just show up for each other. And we talked about this yesterday, but I was reading this morning and I came across something in our tradition, this that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, saint in our tradition, says das das anudas anudas, and it means to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant.
Mm.
And I thought that that was really interesting because we've heard this idea. I can't remember if we've said it on this podcast, but the idea that we're all serving something or we're all serving someone. And I think it's really important.
Mm.
Like when I read that, I've read it so many times and I've heard it so many times, but I think it's really important to clarify, who am I serving and what am I serving and for what reason am I serving it or that person? Because I think something that I've noticed, like when I get what's the word I'm looking for? Overwhelmed or burnt out or something, I've realized that it's because I've lost connection to my higher understanding of like what I'm serving in the first place, or I'm realizing that I'm directing my energy and I'm serving something that is not so useful or sustainable for me. And I just reread it this morning and it was really powerful because I was like, wait a minute, am I serving my senses? Am I serving my trauma? Am I serving my, a version of myself from the past? Or like, how can I clarify this for
Mm.
myself to just like be really clear what I am trying to do, like on this day in the future for myself? And I
Mm.
wanted to ask you because I know that you I remember a long time ago in one of the iterations of the Bhakti Center, Doyal, we made us like little um plaques, or what are they called?
Uh,
Like name
name
plaques or
name plaques, yeah, for
name
guests.
plaques. Doyal made us like little name plaques. And on his it was Das Das Anudas. And I thought that that was really sweet, the servant of the servant of the servant. So yeah, I wanted to hear your take on this, Doyal.
uh, there's a song, lyrics I looked up. You may be a construction worker working on a home. You may be living in a mansion, or you might live in a dome. This is not Dr. Seuss, by the way. You might own guns and you might even own tanks. You might be somebody's landlord. You might even own banks. You may be a preacher with your spiritual pride. You may be a city council person taking bribes on the side. You may be working in a barber shop. You may know how to cut hair. You may be somebody's mistress, maybe somebody's heir, but you're going to have to serve somebody. It may be the devil or it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. It's a song by Bob Dylan. And the whole lyrics is just going through all these different walks of life. And it's interesting, this concept that, when we think of being a servant, it feels very menial, and something that we're trying to spend so much of our time getting away from. I don't want to serve anybody. I don't want, we think about being oppressed, whether it's by government or by a family or in a relationship. The idea of being a servant is something that we want to get away from. But the reality is that we never get away from it. We either elevate or denigrate the quality of the service and where our service is directed. Because spiritually, the innate nature of the soul, the dharma of every living being, the dharma means that inherent quality that you can't take away from something. If you take away that quality, it's no longer that thing. If sugar's not sweet, it's not sugar. You know, if water's not wet, it's not water. You know, um, and so if ice isn't cold, it's not ice. And so there's like this inherent quality that makes something what it is. And us as living beings, you know, so much of the, you know, it's interesting, the name plaque analogy or example that you gave. And, you know, so many, at a certain point, you know, I used to have business cards at the Bhakti Center. And at a certain point, because my title has shifted here so often, you know, now I'm the executive director, but I've been so many other things, program director, director of operations, or this, that, and the other, whatever it is, that I just stopped putting a title on my business card so I wouldn't have to ever reprint them. It just had my name and my number and my email, you know. And but so much of us also, you know, we talk about like in society the letters after our name, you know, the MSW, the PhD, the DDS, you know, whatever it may be, the titles that we come along with, and um, how we identify with those so much. Um, but even then, we're still in the service of something. I'm in the service, really, I'm rather in the service of all, if nothing else, I'm in the service of my ego, which is driving me to be something that maybe I'm not. You know, I was just yesterday, I was reading this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, from the Bhagavad Purana, that mentioned, let me pull it up here. It's from the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a yoga text. Due to this external energy, meaning material energy, the living entity, you and me, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, meaning like we are made of spirit. You know, we are composed of we are beyond this world. And so we are naturally superior to the energy of this world. Like our frequency is higher than just dull material energy. But because we kind of immerse ourselves in that, we think that we belong here in this material world. And then we suffer all the miseries that come along with it. So really, like, the sufferings or the pleasures I undergo in life are in direct relation to the identities that I take on and associate myself with, you know, and the anxieties that come along with trying to uphold and protect that identity. I think I'm rich now. I gotta protect that because I can't be. I mean, I know, like the 2008 financial crisis in America, I mean, it affected the whole world. But when Wall Street crashed, you know, I had friends. I knew a person specifically. I knew somebody who I was a millionaire working on Wall Street, and it wasn't that like, oh, life's tough now, we don't have as much money. It's like his whole identity came crashing down, and it wasn't like I have to find a way to, um, you know, make ends meet. It was like I need to be a millionaire again. Because if I'm not, I don't know who I am. And the stress that came along with like, I made something of myself and now I'm nothing, which isn't true. We're never nothing. And we're never something incredible because of our material acquisitions. But when we associate, we go these massive ups and downs of like on top of the world to like feeling like crap. I was watching the Great British Baking Show. Um, Great show. Great show. Yes, Pasha, that's right. Okay. You can laugh it off, cover your face, heaving, chuckling. I watched the Great British Baking Show.
It's a
Okay.
great show. I love that
Great
show.
show. Wholesome family fun. Um, and, you know, there's like three challenges, and there's one person who, like, you know, on day one somehow pulled it together and like won the first of this technical challenge and was like on the moon and giddy and I can't believe it, everything's great. And the next day she bombed it and she was kicked out of the show. You know, 24-hour turnaround. And I was just thinking, like, that's the material world in a nutshell. It's like I'm just going up because I think I'm the, and what is it? It's not like it's because I think I'm the greatest baker. Yay! Oh my God, I think I'm a terrible baker. I'm gutted. That's the word they like to use in the show a lot. Gutted. I'm just gutted. Maybe that's a British thing. And so, you know, it's like I think I'm the greatest, I think I'm the worst, and it goes up and down. But when we place ourselves, actually, like our nature isn't to try to be on top. Our nature is to serve and lift up. And so this idea of being a servant is that, you know, I'm either serving my ego, I'm serving something else. And
Hmm.
when we realize I want to serve higher truth, I want to serve higher reality, And that actually puts me in alignment and is my greatest fulfillment, really. And so it's almost kind of like this like big release of a burden almost. Like, oh my God, like I don't have to be everything the world tells me I need to be. I don't need to be serving my ego. And I could just like another beautiful quote I like to reference is that like I we can never be in competition if I'm rooting you on, you know. We can never be in competition if I'm rooting for your success. And so this idea of actually like figuring out how can I serve and lift other people up rather than trying to be on top and conquer people, it actually like puts me in a place of peace and it puts me in a place of fulfillment. And happiness just kind of flows as a byproduct. And so it's hard because we have to let go of a lot of things we think about ourselves. I still struggle with it for sure, but I think it's an ongoing worthy pursuit to think about, you know, actually like what am I serving and who do I want to be serving? I think that's the real spiritual question.
Mhm.
Who do you want to serve?
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting because on a philosophical point, when I think about it, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that also he is the forgetfulness in people, right? And a really interesting philosophical point is that Krishna says also in Bhagavad Gita that he will reciprocate accordingly to how we approach him. And I think that's really fascinating, actually, because we've covered this in the podcast that Krishna is simultaneously immanent in the world, right? Like in every single thing, in every single living being and thing, and at the same time separate and apart from it. And so the way that I understand that is like, if I want to like zone out and just like not think about higher things and just kind of like ingratiate my senses or gratify my senses. Ingratiate's the wrong word. Gratify my senses and just do that, then that's how I'm gonna be reciprocated with, and the things are going to be arranged in a way for me to stay there if that's what I want to do, if that's what I want to, accomplish. And I think that it's less of, because I think sometimes, at least for me, there's a little bit of like, you know, a moral aspect or a shame aspect of like, oh, I went into my lower self, or oh, I'm serving someone that's I'm not supposed to be serving, or like, oh, somehow I got into this situation that feels like very negative or whatever. And I feel like that really contributes to the pinballing, like the Great British Bake Off, right? Of like, oh, it wasn't so good, and now all of a sudden I'm the star baker of the week, and all of a sudden now I'm getting kicked out of the show, and all of a sudden here. And it's like, how can I all reality shows are like that. And that's why I kind of like reality shows.
I
Because I'm like,
love seeing people fail and get kicked off of shows. It just brings this tremendous reassurance about my life.
because I'm just like, this is the material world. It's just this way and that way and this way and
Yeah.
that way.
They say in sports there's two things. There's winning and misery. And 99% of all people engaged in sports, because there's one team that wins and there's millions of fans and the majority of them end every season in misery.
I never got sports until I started watching maybe like the Great British Baking Show. I was like, oh, this is the feeling that people are upset about. Okay, I get it. But no, I was saying that yeah, it's like I'm wondering if I think the question really is the spiritual understanding is like, how do I lessen that gap? How do I lessen that gap of just pinballing from one end of, failure and, oh, I'm the worst, and oh, I got myself in this situation. Oh, I got involved with the wrong people, to like, I'm on top of the world and I'm winning the Great British Baking Show and I'm like, oh, I'm killing it. I'm doing it. How do I decrease that gap? Because I think a common misconception is when things are going well, that must mean God's on my side. I think that's a
Mm.
very common misconception. When things are going great for me, oh, that the universe is aligned with me, and I'm just, ooh, I'm on top of the world, and this, like this. And it's like when you start to read a lot of the Bhakti texts, it's not like that actually. And it really, really reminds us. I think we said this yesterday, right? Like in those moments or I can't remember when we said it, in those moments of suffering, that's actually where we're building faith, and that's actually where we're building courage. And so therefore it's not, the goal is not for me to get to this, apex of life and just stay there at all times. It's like, how can I remain steady, going back to this mood of service? How can I remain steady and attached in a good way to my ultimate goal, or what it is that I'm trying to do in the first place, my purpose in the first place? Because if I lose that, Krishna is going to reciprocate with us in a way to keep us where we want to stay, right? If I want to
Mm.
stay in this roller coaster ride of the material world, Krishna is going to be like, okay, go for it. That's you. And I think that that's really interesting actually, because it gives a sense of, what's the word I'm looking for? Agency, actually. Like, okay, if I want to be on this roller coaster ride, I'm going to do it, and everything is prepared for me to do it. And Krishna says, and if you want to get out of it, here are the tools for you to get out of it. So it really puts a lot of like personal responsibility, which can sometimes feel like a lot of pressure. I've definitely felt that pressure, but it can also feel really like liberating. Like, oh, I have the tools, I'm being given the template to get out of this. And the more I step into it, the more I turn to my spiritual practices, the more I turn to my spiritual community, the more I am vulnerable with what I'm actually going through with people that are trusted, and lift each other up. Like that's the way out, in a sense.
Mm.
So yeah, yeah.
People are blowing up on the chat. They love what you're giving, Kishore. You're bringing it. What's coming to my mind was also a lot of what is it. It kind of boils down to, what do I identify with? What do I identify with or as? And this idea of, I'm not what I do. I'm not what I accomplish. I'm not my failure. I'm not my successes or failures. And we hear this a lot, like the preliminary initial definition that Krishna gives of yoga in the second chapter of the Gita is this idea of being equipoised specifically in success and failure. And so, but then the whole Gita itself is about action, about engaging with the world. And so Arjuna gets so confused because he's like, well, you told me to be detached, but then you're telling me to engage. And it's like, it seems like those things are contradictory. Like, if I'm detached, why would I care? Why would I do anything? And so it's this kind of evolved understanding of detachment, not from doing things, but from identifying really with the results of what comes out. You know, I won the Great British Baking Show, therefore I am a great baker. I am, as opposed to, I can bake well. It's something I can do. But my identity is now, I'm a great baker. Or I am, we have all of these different, whatever it is we can identify with. I identify with my success, or I identify with my failure. And that's the pinball machine, you know? And so, and that's where we get to this peace, or this ease, which is hard. Um, and but of not fearing success or failure, not because I don't think failure is going to happen, because I know I'm not going to identify it when it comes. But the trick side of it is that we also have to not identify with the successes. Not that they don't exist, but it's like, I am not that. And that's, I think, that in the Bhagavatam verse I was reading about, that we hear often, and there's various verses about being superior to material energy. We exist transcendental to that. And so, but we do ourselves a great disservice when we identify with something that's not us, you know? And the Gita tells us, what's real and what's false. That which is eternal is what's real, and that which is temporary is false. Not false in the sense it's bad or it's wrong, but just like, it has a beginning and an end, and you're going to exist way beyond that. And so it's this kind of like, it really is this evolved understanding of who I am, and resisting the urge to like latch on to identities that I'm not meant to latch onto, you know?
Yeah, because I forgot that I was going to make this point, but it just came back to me that when I latch onto a certain identity, something that's been in my mind a lot, I've been thinking about like PR and brand stuff. Like this is like my professional mind going on with a lot of stuff that's going on in service right now, like PR and how we represent ourselves and this and whatever. And I've been thinking about like how do I implicitly and explicitly endorse things in my life? And I feel like that also goes into identity. Like when I'm signing up in a sense for an identity, or when I'm like really like, this is who I am, it's like I'm kind of implicitly or explicitly, depending on the situation, I'm kind of endorsing something. It's like when I say that I'm a bhakti yogi, I'm endorsing Krishna. I'm just like, I'm a bhakti yogi and I love Krishna. And
Got
it's
your
kind of
got all
implied.
your Krishna swag, your Krishna hat, your shirt, your,
Yeah.
the Krishna
Uh,
logo.
Krishna.com, krishnastore.com. And I'm wondering, like, with our various multiple identities that we kind of take part in, it's like, where are those implicit or explicit endorsements, and do I know them? Do I agree with them? Is it something that I stand by or I don't stand by? Do I believe in it? Do I think it's do I think it's a goal that I want to achieve? Do I think it's like the do I think it's kind of like the apex? And these are questions that I ask myself a lot, because it's really, really, I think it kind of like really behooves us to ask those questions, because if I'm really getting deep into, and I'm really talking about myself and my process here, it's like when I'm getting really deep into like a version of myself or an identity that's going on with me, I always kind of like stop myself and I just have to ask this question of like, wait a minute, but is this really who I am? Like, is this really what I believe in? you know can I separate myself a little bit from this and understand that
Mm,
this is a part of me, and that this happened in the past, or this is, even if it's happening now, fine. This is a part of me. It doesn't define who I am, right? This is going on, but it's not who I am, right? Like I
mm,
know that I'm something beyond this. Okay, this comes with its endorsements and its implications, and it's like whatever. And then now I'm having a relationship with whatever that is, right? Whether it be something in me, whether it be something in society, whether it be something in other people. I'm having a relationship that's a little bit more like, I feel like there's like a healthy distance from it, and I'm able to like see it from a more objective vantage point, instead of like so involved in it, because I feel like when you're so involved in it, it's really easy to get attached, like really easy, and not the healthiest way.
yeah. Lots of
It
good
seems.
stuff in the comments. Rukmini said, "This is a part of me, not all of me." I think they
Mhm.
should mention that whenever I'm going to write to them at the Great British Baking Show and tell them when they award the thing, I just want you to know this is a part of you. This is not who you are. You are not the greatest amateur baker in all of Britain, but it is a part of you and part of your temporary journey in this life. And don't let it get to your head. Or when they award like the Super Bowl, the World Series, everyone's like, imagine if everyone's like jumping up and down, they're running towards the mound, and then like somebody comes like, wait, oh, calm down, everybody, don't get so excited. This is just temporary, something that you did. It's not who you are. We're going to award this trophy, but don't let it get away. Um, I think that what Jeff said here in the comments, I'm gonna mention what he mentioned because I think it's gonna, as we start to wrap up. He said, we don't have the option of not contributing, right? Krishna tells us not to fight, not to run off to the woods and meditate. So we aren't the quality of our contribution, but our contribution in and of itself is imperative. Yes, our contribution is important. And I think this is I'm gonna tie it back to how you open this conversation, Kishore, of the idea of being a servant. The idea of being, or you can say the idea of being a servant, or the idea of being of service. Um, the idea of being of service. And that when I think about who I want to be in the world or what I want to contribute, it now, I think spirituality and bhakti is this idea that I'm never acting independently, but I'm partnering with a divine higher power. And so my contribution doesn't stand alone, separate from empowerment or collaboration with a divine higher power. And what we're being asked to when Krishna is telling Arjuna to fight, to engage, to walk towards the messes of the world, because there was a big old hairy mess in front of him, is that he's actually saying, walk with me, like partner with me. And then in that partnership, we're actually find our ability to do more than we ever thought we could on our own. And we feel that I'm flowing with divine will. Um, and so I think that really this idea of being of service intimately connects with this idea of divine partnership. And in that realm, it's like things don't completely rest on me, and at the same time, what I do is important. Um, because, and also a big part of the contribution is the transformation we undergo along the way. You know, um, I can't control the outcome at the end of the day. All I can do is offer my best and um, learn the lessons I meant to learn as an individual along the way. And if it's meant to be or go through, that's in divine hands. So that's what I got. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
It's perfect.
Kimberly, you got any takeaways for us? If anybody has any phrases or takeaways they'd like to write into the chat, please feel free to put them out there. And we'll hear from Kimberly, and then we'll get a closing word.
It's our nature to serve. Krishna will reciprocate according to who and what we serve. We aren't our successes or failures. We are transcendental to all of that. And we do ourselves a great disservice when we identify with what is not us.
Beautiful. Lane wrote, we can never be in competition if I'm rooting for your success. Beautiful, Lane. Thank you. Kishore, you got a closing word you want to share with us?
Yeah, I think the word that's really coming to my mind, and I don't think I uttered it today, is just self-awareness. Because when we are fine-tuning the tool of the mind and of the consciousness and of the heart to be more self-aware, then that's when I can slow down and really ask these important questions like, who am I serving? What is the purpose? What is the goal? What am I doing? You know, am I finding myself overly identifying with X, Y, and Z? So self-awareness is something that I think is very important.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Super glad to have you guys all with us and our live audience, as well as all those tuning in out there. We've been sharing a lot. If you want to come and learn more about Bhakti and Kirtan specifically, the art of musical meditation, we're going to Mexico in a few weeks, beginning of April. We're going to keep saying it, going to keep letting people know. Come on over. Come to bhakticenter.org. You can learn all about it, or write to us at info@bhakticenter.org. If you're in the city, come check us out and meet us at the Bhakti Center. We'd love to see you. And until next time, Jeff's going to be here on Thursday. Yes, see you Thursday, Jeff. Love you guys so much. Please be well, take care, and we will see you all again soon. Bye-bye.